4,000 a gift. 12 missed calls at midnight. Was I being controlled? When we first started dating, I thought I had stumbled into something perfect. He was charming in the way that makes you relax your guard and the kind of man who always seemed to know the right thing to say. He held doors open, laughed easily, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who grew up knowing they were important. And maybe that was the first red flag I ignored, that he was born into a family where importance was just assumed, not earned. The first incident, if you can call it that, didn't look like one. It was wrapped in shiny packaging, quite literally. A sleek black box with a ribbon tied across the top, heavy in my hands in a way that made my stomach tighten. Inside was a gadget state-of-the-art, specialized, and completely out of touch with who I was. He beamed as I pulled it out, his eyes shining like he'd just handed me a piece of the moon. I smiled. I thanked him. I told him I appreciated it. Out loud, I said all the right words. Inside, I was panicking, because here's the truth. I had never once mentioned wanting this thing. It cost nearly $4,000 money I would never have spent on myself, and money I wasn't even sure he should have been spending on me. I wasn't tech-savvy, not even a little. The gadget required time training and a level of interest I didn't have. But as I held it in my hands, I felt the weight of it become something heavier than metal and circuits. It became obligation. A week later, he asked casually if I'd used it yet. I admitted no, not yet, but I'd get around to it. His face shifted, and for the first time I saw a crack in that charming exterior. So I wasted my time. Then he asked? No, I said quickly, my voice bright and light, like I was swatting away a fly. Of course not. I love it. I just haven't had the chance. But he pressed his voice, tightening with each word. Do you know how much effort I put into this? Do you know how much it cost? I knew. That was the problem. In that moment, I realized the gift wasn't a gift at all. It was a contract I hadn't agreed to sign. Every dollar attached to it was now a debt he decided I owed him. And every time I looked at it, sitting unopened in my apartment, I didn't see generosity. I saw a ledger, the kind his wealthy family probably kept on everyone they dealt with, give and expect to receive tenfold. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe he was just insecure about whether I liked it. Maybe expensive gifts were simply his way of showing love. But deep down, I recognized something else, a seed of control planted under the guise of affection. And still I minimized it. I told myself it was just a misunderstanding. I convinced myself that any discomfort was my problem, not his. After all, who gets upset about being given something expensive? Who complains about a boyfriend who spends thousands on them 3 months into dating? But looking back now, that moment was the first time I learned what love felt like when it came with strings attached. And those strings would only get tighter. It was a Tuesday night, nothing unusual about it. I'd worked late, grabbed a quick bite, and by the time I looked at the clock, it was nearly 10:30 p.m. Most people would have called it a night, but for me, the gym was non-negotiable. Fitness was my way of decompressing the only part of my day where the noise in my head quieted. So I texted him before I left, heading to the gym back later. His reply came instantly. One word, okay. That was it. No concern, no complaint, just okay. So I assumed that meant he was fine with it. I slipped my headphones in, got lost in my workout, and for an hour and a half, the world narrowed to weights clanging and music pounding. When I finally finished around midnight, I checked my phone and froze. 12 missed calls. 12. My stomach dropped. A knot tightened in my chest as I tapped to call him back. The line barely rang before he picked up, his voice exploding through the speaker. Where the hell have you been? He shouted. I blinked, still catching my breath from the workout. At the gym. I told you. Don't play stupid with me. Do you know what time it is? Do you know what it looks like for you to be out this late, surrounded by half-naked guys? You're my girlfriend, not some. He cut himself off, but the implication hung heavy. I stammered. It's just the gym. You've never had a problem with me going before. That was before I realized what it looks like. He snapped. You think I'm going to sit here while my girl parades around sweaty men in the middle of the night? I'm too old to be chasing after a child. His words hit me harder than any workout. Child. Parading. As if I'd been doing something indecent by following the same routine I'd had for years. I tried to explain. I told him the gym was safe, that people kept to themselves, that I just needed to go when I had time. But the more I spoke, the angrier he got. His voice climbed, demanding, accusing, painting me as careless, disrespectful, disloyal. And all I could do was listen, my throat tight, guilt flooding me, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. That night, I barely slept. Every vibration of my phone made me jump. I found myself checking it obsessively the next day, terrified of missing a call or a text. It was like my body had been rewired overnight, trained to anticipate his anger. And here's the thing, he never apologized. Not once. By the following evening, he acted like nothing had happened. Joked with me, complimented me, brushed past the outburst as though it hadn't left a bruise. But it did, because that was the night I learned what it meant to live under silent surveillance. He didn't need to be in the gym with me. His voice, his temper, his disapproval, they followed me everywhere. And slowly, I started carrying his anger like it was my own. It happened on a Saturday, the kind of day that should have felt light and easy. We had plans to meet around noon, nothing complicated, just lunch and maybe a walk afterward. The night before, we'd stayed up talking until nearly 3 a.m, long winding conversations that blurred into half-sleep laughter. It felt intimate, the kind of late-night bond that usually leaves you smiling the next day. But when my alarm rang, I hit snooze, then snooze again. By the time I finally blinked awake, the clock glared back at me 11:30. I texted him immediately. Hey, I overslept running about an hour behind. See you soon? I expected a shrug, maybe a teasing reply about me being a sleepyhead. Instead, my phone lit up with a call almost instantly. His voice wasn't angry this time, it was worse. You don't want me anymore, do you? He said flatly. I froze halfway, pulling on my jeans. What? Of course I do. I just overslept. He let out a sharp laugh, not amused. Don't lie. If you actually cared, you wouldn't make me wait. I'm the only one in this relationship who's actually excited to see the other person. Do you even realize how much that hurts? My throat tightened. It was 1 hour. 1 hour after a night we'd both chosen to stay awake. I tried to explain, telling him weekends were my only time to rest, that I hadn't meant anything by it, but he cut me off. You say you love me, but your actions tell me otherwise. You don't make me a priority. You don't treat this relationship like it matters. Honestly, sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one here. His words sank like stones in my chest. And the worst part, I started questioning myself. Was I being careless? Was I showing him enough affection? Was I accidentally pushing him away without realizing it? I apologized. I said it over and over as if saying sorry could erase the hour I'd lost. He sighed heavily, letting the silence stretch, punishing me with it. Finally, he muttered, fine. Just don't do it again. But I knew it wasn't fine, because in that moment, something shifted. Sleep, something so basic, so human, had been turned into evidence against me. He wasn't just upset about being delayed. He was rewriting the story, casting me as the one who didn't care. Enough didn't love enough wasn't enough. That night, as I lay in bed, his words replayed in my mind. I'm the only one who's enthusiastic. You don't want me anymore? Over and over until they felt like truths instead of accusations. And that's how control works, not by chains, but by whispers that make you doubt your own heart. It was supposed to be a carefree afternoon. We'd stopped at a little ice cream shop, tucked into the corner of the street, the kind of place that smelled like waffle cones and childhood summers. The kind of place where couples leaned close, laughing over shared scoops, where no one thought about power struggles or red flags. We slid into a booth, cones in hand. Mine was strawberry, his was chocolate. We were joking about something silly. A story he told about his coworker, a harmless anecdote. For once, it felt easy. His hand brushed mine across the table, and I didn't think much of it. I even smiled. But then, his hand moved under the table, landing on my knee. Again, I didn't mind. It felt cheeky, playful. The kind of thing couples do in public without drawing too much attention. Except his hand didn't stay there. It crept higher. Slowly, deliberately. I laughed nervously, swatting lightly at his arm. Stop, I whispered, still smiling, trying to keep it light. But he didn't stop. His hand pressed further up my thigh, ignoring the warning in my voice. I said, stop, I repeated sharper, now pulling his hand away. His grin widened, as though my protest was part of some game. Relax, he murmured, his voice low but insistent. Something inside me snapped. My smile dropped. My voice rose louder than I meant. I said, stop. The word cut through the hum of conversation in the parlor. Heads turned. A mother with her child glanced over. A man at the counter paused mid-order. The air shifted, uncomfortable, heavy. He jerked his hand back instantly, but his expression wasn't shame, it was fury. Not at himself, but at me. Are you insane? He hissed, leaning across the table. Do you want to get us into a fight? What if someone here thought I was harassing you? Do you realize how dangerous that could have been? What if some guy tried to defend you, and I had to defend myself? Do you want us both ending up in jail? Because you couldn't handle a little touch? I stared at him, stunned. My pulse pounded in my ears, my stomach twisting. Somehow, in the span of seconds, he had flipped the script. I wasn't the girl whose boundaries were ignored. I was the reckless one, the troublemaker, the liability. I wanted to scream, you're the one who crossed the line. But his words tangled with my fear, making me second guess. What if people really had seen it differently? What if someone had stepped in? Ask yourself, what would you do if the person who's supposed to love you insists that you are the threat? You're the one endangering them simply for saying no. That night, I couldn't shake the moment. The way the parlor had gone silent, the way strangers' eyes had burned on us, the way he had managed to twist everything until I felt guilty for protecting my own body. I replayed it again and again, the sound of my own voice echoing too loud, his whisper blaming me for the fallout. And I realized something chilling. It wasn't that he didn't hear me when I said stop, it was that he did, and he chose to ignore it anyway. Stops. Vacations are supposed to be escapes. Sunlight on your skin, laughter in the air, a sense that the rest of the world has been put on pause. That's what I thought when we booked the trip together, a chance to unwind, to breathe, to remember why we had chosen each other in the first place. The tour we signed up for was long, 8, maybe 9 hours, weaving through historic sites and bustling markets. We were surrounded by other travelers, strangers, who smiled politely and made small talk as we shuffled from one stop to the next. Among them was a man I'll call Adam, traveling alone, easygoing, the kind of person who could strike up a conversation with anyone. At first, it was my boyfriend who clicked with him. They bonded quickly over sports and work trading jokes like old friends. I was relieved, even happy, he wasn't always the easiest person to get along with, and seeing him relax was a gift. So I hung back, letting them talk, enjoying the scenery. For hours, they kept up their banter, and I thought maybe this trip will be different. Maybe this will be the moment things shift. But then, near the end of the tour, Adam drifted over to me. We talked casually what he thought of the trip, where he was heading next, the usual chatter between travelers sharing the same path. It was light harmless. My boyfriend had spent all day chatting with him. Surely me exchanging a few words wouldn't matter? Except it did. Almost immediately, I felt his presence. He butted into the conversation, lobbing abrupt, irrelevant questions at me. Interruptions that made no sense, designed only to fracture the rhythm between me and Adam. I tried to smooth it over, answering quickly, keeping my focus on Adam so it wouldn't seem like a big deal. But beneath the surface, I could feel the tension coil tight. His jaw set, his eyes hardening every time I laughed at something Adam said. By the time we got back to the hotel, the silence was suffocating. Then behind closed doors, it broke. "You ignored me," he accused, his voice low but sharp. I blinked, startled. "What?" "No, I didn't. I was just talking. Don't play dumb." He cut me off. "You spent more time in that conversation with him than you did with me. Do you even hear yourself? Do you know what that looks like?" I tried to explain. He'd talked with Adam all day. I'd simply joined in for a few minutes. But logic didn't matter. To him, it wasn't a harmless conversation. It was betrayal. "If we were back home," he snapped, "I would have told him to back off. But we're in another country. Do you even realize the risk you put us in? What if he'd reacted badly? What if there'd been a fight? We could have ended up in a police station, and then what? You think I want to be locked up abroad because you couldn't keep your mouth shut?" I stood there stunned. What had been an innocent exchange was now painted as a threat to our safety, as if my words had the power to unleash disaster. Ask yourself, what would you do if your partner framed your most ordinary interactions as dangerous, even criminal? If a simple conversation became ammunition to accuse you of disloyalty? That night, I lay awake replaying every word I'd said to Adam, twisting them in my mind until they sounded incriminating. I wondered if I had laughed too easily, if I had leaned too close, if I had done something to justify the storm that followed. And in that doubt, I could feel his voice replacing mine, until I wasn't sure which story was true anymore. By the third day of our trip, the sun was relentless. Heat pressed down like a weight, and everyone slathered on sunscreen just to survive the afternoons. I thought nothing of it at first. Putting a bit of sunblock on his back seemed natural, a small gesture of care. After all, he couldn't reach it himself, and I didn't mind helping. But then it became a routine. Not just his back, his shoulders, his arms, even his chest. By the second day, he was holding out the bottle expectantly like it was my job. "Come on," he'd say with a boyish grin. "I don't want to get my hands dirty." At first, I laughed. It felt a little ridiculous, almost playful. I spread the lotion across his skin, joking that he was acting like a prince who couldn't risk a single smudge. But by day 3, the joke wasn't funny anymore. He shoved the bottle into my hands without even asking, settling into his chair as though I were some hired help. I hesitated. "You know you could do it yourself? I'll get your back if you can't reach, but the rest you've got 2 hands." He frowned, looking almost offended. "But then my hands will get messy." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It never came. "So it's fine for me to get messy, but not you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light even though something inside me had tightened. His face hardened. "Well, I've never dated a girl like this before." The words dripped with disdain, like my refusal to play along had revealed some flaw in me. I wanted to snap back to tell him that expecting me to lather him head to toe wasn't romance, it was entitlement. But instead, I held my ground silently, squeezing the bottle back into his palm. "Do it yourself," I said quietly. He didn't take it well. The rest of the day, he was distant, sulking like a child denied candy. He made little comments under his breath, reminders that my resistance had bruised his ego. And once again, I found myself second-guessing. Had I overreacted? Was it really such a big deal to just do it for him? But deep down, I knew. It wasn't about sunblock, it was about power, about testing how far he could push before I pushed back. Ask yourself, how many times can you dismiss something as not a big deal before you realize the pattern? Before you understand that every small demand is just rehearsal for something bigger. That day, as I rubbed lotion into my own skin, I caught him watching me. Not with affection, not with gratitude, but with something darker. A simmering resentment that told me my refusal hadn't been forgotten. And in that look, I saw the truth. The sunblock wasn't just about avoiding the sun. It was about seeing if I would keep bending until I broke. We were sitting in his apartment one evening, the city lights flickering through the blinds, when the conversation turned toward the past. It wasn't unusual we'd shared stories before traded snapshots of who we'd been before finding each other. I had always believed that honesty built trust, that laying everything out on the table would make us stronger. So when I told him about the phase in my early 20s when I'd experimented, dated casually, hooked up a few times before realizing it wasn't for me, I did it with open hands. I wasn't proud or ashamed, it was simply part of my story. I explained how I'd grown since then, how I'd come to value stability and depth over fleeting connections. At the time, he had nodded, said it didn't matter, even admitted he'd done the same in college. I believed him. I thought we'd left it at that. But weeks later, he brought it up again. His tone was different, colder, more cutting. "It bothers me," he said, suddenly, almost like he'd been holding it in. "What you did, who you were, it's not the same for men and women. You know that, right?" The words hit me like ice water. I tried to keep calm. "I was honest with you from the start. It was years ago. I'm happy with who I am now. Why is this coming up again?" He shrugged, but it wasn't casual. It was calculated. Because I can't stop thinking about it. Every time I look at you, I wonder how many guys got there first. How many times you said the same things to them that you say to me? Anger flared in my chest, but so did guilt. It's a dangerous combination, being both furious and ashamed. I reminded him that he'd admitted to similar things in his past, but he brushed it off with a wave of his hand. It's different, he insisted. For guys, it's just experience. For women. He trailed off, but the silence finished the sentence for him. I felt small cornered by a history I couldn't change. My instinct was to defend myself, to explain, to argue. But why should I have to? Why was my worth being weighed against a past that no longer defined me? Finally, I looked him in the eye and said quietly, if this is something you can't move past, then maybe you shouldn't be with me. His reaction wasn't relief or even clarity. It was confusion, almost panic. He blinked at me like I'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. You just let me go. Just like that, he demanded. I swallowed hard. I'd rather be with someone who accepts me for who I am than beg someone to rewrite my history. He didn't leave. Not then. Instead, he lingered, pacing the room, muttering about how maybe he'd been too harsh. Maybe he just needed more time. But the damage was done. My honesty, the thing I thought would make us stronger, had become a weapon in his hands. And every time I caught him staring at me afterward, I couldn't tell if he was looking at me or at the ghost he thought stood behind me. Ask yourself, what would you do if the very truth you offered in love became the knife pressed back against your own chest? It happened on a Sunday afternoon, one of those quiet days where the city outside felt muffled and distant. I thought we were having a normal conversation, just revisiting the tension from before. But somewhere in the middle of my words, me trying to explain again that my past didn't define my love for him, his expression hardened. He leaned back, folded his arms, and said flatly, well, I did try. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. My stomach dropped. Did he just end this? I stared at him, searching his face for something, regret, anger, even relief. Anything that would help me understand what he meant. Does this mean we're done? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He looked away, fiddled with his keys on the table, then muttered, I guess, that word, it wasn't yes, it wasn't no. It was a half answer, a non-answer. But it was enough to set something inside me free. Okay, I said, standing up slowly, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. If that's what you want, then take care. All the best. I thought that was it. The end? Clean, simple, painful, but final. But instead of leaving, he lingered, picking up his jacket, putting it back down, gathering his things in slow, halting motions like a man not sure if he wanted to go or stay. And as he moved, he kept talking. I'm sorry we couldn't make it work, he murmured, eyes darting to mine, then away. I really did have a good time with you. You're amazing. I don't know. Every word twisted the knife deeper, because it wasn't a goodbye. It was bait. I forced a smile, though my throat burned. You don't have to make me feel better. It's fine, really. But he didn't stop. Are we both sure this is what we want? He asked suddenly, his tone urgent now. I froze. He was the one who'd said it. He was the one who'd pulled the trigger. Well, it seems like it's what you want, I answered carefully. That's when his mask cracked. No, he said quickly. It's not what I want. I thought it's what you wanted. The room spun. In that moment, I realized the truth. He didn't want to break up. He wanted me to beg him not to. He wanted me to prove that I was desperate enough to cling to him even after he'd pushed me away. I should have walked out. I should have ended it right there. But instead, I found myself caught in the web he'd spun, confused, guilty, second-guessing myself. We ended up sitting there for hours talking in circles until finally the tension dissolved into an uneasy truce. We weren't broken up. Not exactly. But something between us had cracked beyond repair. Later that night, lying awake in bed, I replayed it all in my head. The way he tested me, dangling the relationship over a cliff just to see if I would pull it back. The way he turned my honesty, my love, even my willingness to let him go into weapons he could use against me. It wasn't a breakup. It was a performance. And the scariest part, I realized I'd been part of the audience clapping for a show that was slowly destroying me. It was supposed to be an ordinary Monday. Work had drained me, and I wanted something to look forward to by the end of the week. So I texted him, hey, how about we spend Friday night together? We could grab dinner, maybe watch a movie, then have the whole weekend free. He replied, short and vague. I'll let you know how my schedule looks. That was it. No warmth, no excitement, just a non-committal shrug hidden behind text. I brushed it off. Maybe he was busy. Maybe work had him stressed. But deep down, I knew. This was how it always started. The dangling, the uncertainty, the making me feel like I was waiting for him to decide whether I was worth his time. By Tuesday, I had an invite from some close friends for a Friday dinner. I thought about it, weighed my options, then decided, why not? He hadn't confirmed anything. If he wanted to see me, he could tell me. I wasn't going to sit around like a dog waiting for scraps. So I accepted. I texted him politely. Hey, just a heads up. I made dinner plans with friends Friday. I can still meet you later in the evening if you're free. I thought that was fair. Respectful even. But when my phone rang that night, his name flashing across the screen, I already felt my chest tighten. Who the hell is so important? You need to ditch me for, he spat as soon as I answered. His voice was sharp, full of venom. Do your friends mean more to you than I do? I blinked, stunned. It's not about that. You didn't confirm anything. I didn't want to waste the night waiting around. He laughed bitter and cruel. So I'm a waste of time now. No, that's not what I said. Then what are you saying? He snapped, cutting me off. You're disrespecting me. jerking me around like I'm some side option. Who even are these friends? Are there guys there? Do you think I'm stupid? I felt heat rise in my cheeks, not from shame, but from anger. They're my friends. And yes, some are guys, some are girls. It's a dinner. Not a crime. That only made him explode. Don't play dumb. You know damn well how it looks. You flaunting yourself around other men while I'm left hanging? You don't value me? You don't love me. You stop. I snap back, my voice trembling. I told you days in advance. It's not last minute. If you wanted me Friday, you should have said so. The line went quiet for a beat. I thought maybe he was reflecting. Maybe he'd finally realized how unreasonable he sounded. But then he said the words that still echo in my head. Enjoy your dinner. I hope it's worth the cost of our relationship. It was a threat, a knife disguised as a sentence. My hands shook, but I forced my voice steady. If that's how you see it, then maybe it is worth it. Because I won't give up my entire life just to keep you from exploding. The silence that followed was different this time. Not heavy, not suffocating, just empty. A void where something once lived. That was the night I knew finally, undeniably, this wasn't love. It was control. It was a cage disguised as commitment. He wanted obedience, not partnership, submission, not respect. And I realized I couldn't keep twisting myself into knots to fit inside his world. I hung up, my heart-pounding tears burning my eyes, but beneath it all, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. When the call ended, I sat in the dark, staring at my phone like it was some poisonous thing. The apartment felt too quiet, the shadows too heavy. My chest was tight, but for the first time in months, the tightness wasn't just fear, it was also release. Still, endings are never clean. The next morning, my phone lit up with his messages. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. You know I love you, right? The whiplash was dizzying. Just hours earlier, he'd accused me of disrespecting him, of choosing friends over him. Now he wanted forgiveness. I didn't reply. Instead, I stared at the wall and whispered to myself, don't cave this time. Don't. But there was still one thing left to handle our stuff. We'd left pieces of ourselves in each other's spaces, his hoodie in my closet, my books on his shelf, the $4,000 gadget he'd bought me still shoved into its box, untouched. The thought of seeing him again made my stomach churn. I didn't trust his temper, didn't trust his tears, didn't even trust myself not to falter. So I did what any scared, cautious woman would do. I brought backup. My friend Nate, a semi-pro MMA fighter with arms like tree trunks, agreed to come with me. He didn't ask too many questions, just nodded when I explained and said, I'll be there. When we arrived at his place, X's whole demeanor was different. He looked smaller somehow, his voice soft, almost childlike. Hey, he said, forcing a smile. You look beautiful. Can we just talk? I shook my head. I'm here for my things, that's all. His eyes darted to Nate standing behind me, silent but solid. For once, X didn't push. He didn't yell, didn't throw accusations. Instead, he played nice. Handed me a box of my belongings, tried to laugh, even reached out for a hug. I stepped back. No, just give me my stuff. The silence between us was unbearable. He lingered in the doorway, his face twisting between anger and sorrow. I really thought we had something, he said, finally, voice low. You're just going to throw it away for, what? Dinner with friends, As I met his eyes steady this time. I'm throwing it away because you never treated me like an equal. Because I've been walking on eggshells for 3 months. Because this isn't love. His jaw clenched. He wanted to argue, I could see it. But with Nate watching, he didn't. I took the last box, placed the gadget inside it, and handed it back to him. I don't want this. No reminders. No excuses for you to call me later. For a moment, something raw flickered across his face. Regret, maybe. Or just the realization that his control was slipping for good. I turned and walked away before I could second-guess myself. Each step down those stairs felt lighter, like I was peeling layers of his anger and manipulation off my skin. By the time I reached the car, I could breathe again. Later that night, I blocked his number, then his social media, then his email. Each click was like cutting another thread that tied me to him. It hurt. God, it hurt. Not because I loved him anymore, but because I'd invested so much time, hope pieces of myself, I didn't think I'd get back. Walking away felt like admitting I'd wasted it all. But here's the truth, wasted or not, it was over. And in that emptiness, something new began to grow. A sense of clarity, a voice inside me whispering, never again. Never again would I ignore the red flags. Never again would I let someone's temper dictate my worth. Never again would I mistake control for love. That was the real aftermath, not just the breakup, not just the exchange of boxes, but the quiet vow I made to myself. I chose me, finally. Months have passed since that night, but sometimes it still feels fresh. The echo of his voice, the sting of his words, the way he made me feel small in rooms I should have owned. But time is a quiet healer. It doesn't erase wounds, but it teaches you how to carry them. At first, the silence was deafening. No angry calls, no late-night accusations, no endless stream of apologies that never meant anything. Just silence. And in that silence, I finally heard something I hadn't in a long time myself. I threw myself into work, into friends, into rediscovering pieces of me I tucked away to keep the peace. Weekend hikes without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Long dinners with friends without glancing over my shoulder. Sleep uninterrupted by the dread of waking up to 12 missed calls. Freedom tasted strange at first, sweet but almost foreign. Like I'd been starving and didn't know how to eat. I heard through mutual friends that he tried to spin the breakup differently. That I'd been cold, that I didn't know how to love, that I gave up too easily. Maybe that's how he needed to frame it to protect his ego. I don't care, because I know the truth. And the truth is simple: I stayed too long in something that was breaking me. I won't lie and say I don't think about him sometimes. Trauma bonds are tricky like that. They make you miss the very person who hurt you because chaos becomes familiar. But when those thoughts creep in, I remind myself of the girl I was checking my phone with trembling hands, rehearsing excuses to keep him calm, sacrificing piece after piece of myself until I was almost gone. That girl deserved better, and now she has it. Not in the form of someone new, not yet, but in the form of peace, in the form of choosing myself every single day. And maybe that's the closure I needed all along. Still, some nights I wonder, not about him, but about people like him. About how easy it is to confuse intensity with intimacy, possession with passion. So I'll leave you with this: ask yourself, if the person you love makes you feel more fear than safety, more exhaustion than joy, more doubt than certainty, is it really love, or is it just a beautiful cage you've convinced yourself is worth living in? Because the hardest part of leaving isn't walking out the door. It's admitting you deserve to walk free in the first place. Thanks for watching to the end. If this story helped you spot a red flag, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Your support helps us bring more full story dramas to the channel.